And then you have the native and aboriginal blacks. And black people cannot be native or aboriginal. But you have black people who say they are Native Americans. When you also have aboriginals, Moorish people, but they say that they are Moroccan. And there's this motivation behind the Moors is a lot to do with. So the native aboriginal black people. And here's the reality about black Indians. Black people got Indian blood the same way we got white blood, through rape. Every single recognized civilized tribe in the United States was not only a full participant in the slave trade, they all owned slaves. And not that they only did they own slaves, every single recognized native tribe fought on the side of the Confederacy. They fought with the South to preserve the institution of slavery. And even after the Confederate States lost and chattel slavery was legislated out of existence and given, and African people were given citizenship, the Native American says we don't live under Constitution. We are sovereign lands. So even if the United States wants to abolish slavery and the slave trade, we reserve the right unto ourselves to keep slavery. But the white man went to the natives and said, come on, you know your sovereignty is pretend. Let's stop playing. Let the black people go. And not only that, the federal government gave the Native Americans compensation and said, this is your compensation for the loss of your slave, and this is compensation for you to give to your enslaved Africans for them to go make a life for themselves. And the natives kept all the money. And not only that, for the black people who were enslaved and raped by our native captors, who had Indian blood, Indian hair, Indian in their family, there have been tribes who have held votes to oust or to no longer recognize the African descendants of the native people. Not once, more than once, twice. The Cherokee Nation says we vote to expel the blacks. Now, I'm not saying this to take away from the genocide and atrocities leveled against native people. You know, there's a lot of people trying to navigate these systems. And yes, they did participate. Dr. Claude Anderson in his research said at one time it was the native strategy when they were fighting westward expansion of the white man to kill every black person they could get their hands on, because that is depriving. Remember when the white man came and started slaughtering all the buffaloes, because they said the buffaloes is their natural resource, and if we kill the buffalo, a dead buffalo represents a dead Indian, because that represents resources that our enemy won't have access to. The natives adopted that same point of view and say, hey, for every black slave we kill, that's fewer resources that the white man will have to build up his nation. And Dr. Claude Anderson said at some time, the top killer of African people. Destroy your enemy's assets. And we were chattel. We were property. So guerrilla warfare involves disrupting the supply chain. How do you disrupt the supply chain in a slave economy? You kill the slaves. And now we got black people running around talking about, I'm Indian. Disrespecting the struggles and sufferings of our own ancestors. We are not aboriginal to this land. We are not original to this land. We are not natives of this land. We are aboriginal Africans. We are from the African continent, brought here through the documented, well-documented. Because the king sat on their throne in Spain, the king sat on the throne in Portugal, the king and the prime minister sat on thrones and in parliament houses throughout Europe and France, and they wanted to account for every gold nugget, every ounce of copper, every black body that came. You go read some of those ledgers. They would describe the quality of our dental, the texture and size of our muscles, They would document all that shit. And now we trying to pretend like, oh, I had black people come to me like, where are the slave ships? There was no slave ships. Where are the slave ships? As if they just made slave ships were just cargo ships. What are you talking about? They would take guns and muskets and rum and alcohol to Africa. Bring Africans on those same ships that they brought the guns and shit and the textiles to the African continent. Then they would load up with African bodies. And the thing is, black human cargo is very light. They would have to weigh down those ships, because even though they would fill it with hundreds and thousands of African bodies, they had to weigh it down the ship because human cargo is too light. So then they come here with the human cargo, and then they get the gold, they get the raw goods, they get the pelts, they get the raw unrefined cotton, and then take that by Europe. Did you pay attention in the 3rd grade, the triangle trade route? The slave ships were just the basic cargo ships. I've had black people look at me and like, show me a slave ship. There are no slave ships. Fuck is wrong with you? Another population of black people that want to escape and say, from Africa, the black Hebrew Israelites. They say we are not Africans. They said that every black person that came over here on the slave ship was a black Hebrew.